Hello, everybody. My name is Graham Elwood, and you are watching the Shazam Political Vigilante. We are paying close attention to what the BRICS countries are doing because what they are doing is effectively leaving the U.S. economy, the U.S. dollar, which the United States empire uses to leverage and force the whole world to bend to its knee. And in so doing, it is in so doing, it is really going to limit the American empire's ability to kind of financially strong arm its way in countries doing. And what we're going to see now is they're selling off U.S. bonds, and bonds. You're basically buying a bond. You're betting on the United States, and as countries get rid of these bonds, it's going to really. We're on the verge. Several people have been talking about it. I've talked about it on this show. We're on the verge of potentially a big economic collapse, and most of it is the United States' own doing. There was little to no legislation done after the 2008 housing crisis. There was the Dodd-Frank bill, which was pretty weak. And so what we've seen, I mean, they even talked about it in The Big Short. You watch the end of The Big Short, they say in essence, they say very little was done. And so what have we had from 2008 to 2022? Well, credit, low interest rates, people getting all this money. And then, COVID did that as well. COVID infused, whatever, $3-4 trillion into the economy. And now interest rates are up. The inflation is up. And I watch a lot of different sort of financial experts, and they're saying this is bad. This is causing, there's a housing bubble. We just now had in September the largest number of defaults on car loans. I talked to you a while ago about a car loan bubble, and we're in a tough recession. And I'm going to show you this. I'm going to read you this article, but also going to show you what Max Kaiser said, who's been on this show. And I'm going to be performing with him in El Salvador, November 8th, as part of the Adopting Bitcoin conference. We're doing the Bitcoin Hollywood Comedy Show. You can save 21% using coupon code Elwood21. But so all these people that know a lot about finance are kind of saying the same thing. But let's look at this article right here. BRICS nations cut $18.9 billion in U.S. treasuries. What's the impact? Okay. So the recent data, I'm going to go in on this, from the U.S. Treasury Department reveals a significant move by members of the BRICS Economic Alliance. BRICS, I've talked about this before. It's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. And it should be noted that about a month, I think in August, Saudi Arabia joined it as well. And China, the world's second largest holder of U.S. treasuries, has noticeably reduced its holding from $835.4 billion in June to $821.8 billion in July. This marks a decline of $13.6 billion in just 1 month, which is a pretty big move. Additionally, over the past year, China has offloaded about $117 billion worth of government debt. So the reason a country would want to own U.S. debt is it's like, well, America, and of course, we have trillions of dollars in debt, but the basic broad strokes of this is you're buying U.S. debt because you believe in the U.S. economy. You believe in America is, and it's 300 and some, healthy, working people that can spend a lot of money and have a big economic force. That's what these other countries are betting on. If they're dumping U.S. bonds, and we had Christy I on our show 3 years ago talking about how people were starting to dump U.S. treasuries, this isn't a good sign. And so when China did this, as it says in the article, other BRICS members follow suit. Brazil, another key player in the BRICS alliance, has trimmed U.S. treasury holdings. The South American nation's treasury stash declined from $227 billion to $224 billion, a decrease of about just under $3 billion. They all did it around the same time, June and July, right? India did the same thing by dumping 2.3 billion over the same period. Again, all around the same time. The UAE, although not a BRICS member, saw that its holdings drop by 300 million. According to the report from the Nikkei Asia, China is also cutting back on its U.S. treasuries to defend the yuan against the strong U.S. dollar. The Chinese yuan recently fell to 13.6 versus the dollar, a level last seen in January 2008. When countries sell U.S. treasuries, the proceeds often serve as capital for a nation's central bank to accumulate local currency on the open market, thereby boosting its value. Besides the economic implications, this trend could have geopolitical ramifications. The BRICS nations are increasingly looking to diversify their portfolios, possibly as a hedge against U.S. economic policies. Moreover, these nations' decline in U.S. Treasury holdings could impact the U.S. government's ability to finance its debt, leading to broader questions about the dollar's role as the world's reserve currency. This is why I think, and people like Max Kaiser and many others think, that eventually Bitcoin will be the world's reserve currency. It's worth noting, U.S. Treasury dump by BRICS nations comes at a time when the global economy is undergoing rapid changes. Trade tensions, geopolitical shifts, and the ongoing impact of COVID are contributing factors. The shredding of U.S. treasuries by these countries could be a harbinger of more significant economic changes to come by the BRICS nations. So, okay, I think there's more to it than that. I think that's a very sort of optimistic view of what is happening here. I don't want to be all gloom and doom, but the reality is the reality is. So I want to show you what Max Kaiser tweeted in response to this. Let's bring up Max's tweet that he put out today. Here we go. This is from the Kobayashi letter, right? Just in 10-year note yield hits 4.7 for the first time since October 2007. The 10-year hit a new 430 basis points since March of 2020. So this is Max Kaiser's response to that. The BRICS are on a buyer's strike. They are rug pulling the U.S. Treasury market, and there is nothing the U.S. can do about it. The U.S. Treasury market is at risk of going no bid. Bank holidays would close banks for an intermediate length of time. The only form of money still working in that scenario is Bitcoin. And you see these, people's responses to it. It's like, it's if we make it to December. So that is significant that Max Kaiser then weighs in those terms. And so it's something we've talked about on this show. First of all, in March, remember in March when Silicon Valley Bank got bailed out? So a year ago, it was last November, is when the FTX scandal happened. But in March, SVB and First Republic Bank and one or two others, about 3 or 4 banks, if I'm not mistaken, might have been as many as a half a dozen, I can't remember off the top of my head, all got bailed out. And that's when Joe Biden and everybody said your money's safe. And I told you in March of 2008 is when Bear Stearns went belly up. And by September of 2008 is when everything went up in smoke, right? So here we are now. It's October. It's the beginning of October. Is there going to be some massive collapse before the end of the year? I don't know. I can't predict that. But when I see these BRICS countries doing this, and then I see what it's doing to the markets, and then I see Max Kaiser's response to it, it leads me to believe that, we've talked about on the show that this is coming in one form or another. We're already in a recession. They try to tell American people, we're not in a recession. We're not in a recession. Yes, we are. We are absolutely in a recession. I don't know what they're talking about. We are in a recession. So the notion that we're not is like, I don't know what they're talking. Again, I'm in Southern California and gas is now getting up near $6 a gallon. You can still find it if you go to like Costco or Sam's Club for 540, 550. But just driving around town, you see 580, 590, and then you see several gas stations that are like 610, 615. You're seeing it. We're in a recession and countries are bailing on us. And this is why I say this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. This is just my opinion, but this is why I keep buying up Bitcoin. Bitcoin has popped up to 28,000 today. It hasn't been at 28 in quite a while. But when everything collapses, they're going to institutional money and everybody's going to be putting it into Bitcoin is what I think is going to happen. And also be leery of the central banking digital currencies, the CBDCs. Those I'm not a fan of because that's what they're going to try to do because that they can track. The CBDCs, they can track where your money is and who you're paying and all this. Bitcoin, you can't track it as hard. So strange things are afoot, my friends. When in doubt, buy Bitcoin and hodl it. Hold it for as long as you can. So we'll keep tracking this stuff because I've been I've been talking money and finance on this show for a while, but it's specifically the last 3 years or so, 3.5 years, because I really don't want to see anybody get crushed like I did in the 2008 crisis, right? I don't want to see that happen to you. So, if you don't understand Bitcoin, go to the bitcoin.com YouTube channel. They have a Bitcoin 101 playlist. It explains it in very clear terms and understand the difference between Bitcoin and crypto. Okay. Bitcoin is like digital gold, right? Because there's no Bitcoin offices that can be raided. There's no Bitcoin CEO that can be arrested. The FBI isn't going to arrest the parents of Bitcoin for being corrupt. So, whereas these altcoins, they can be pump and dump. They can be, you can see what they can be scams. They can be any number of things. Some of the altcoins might be decent investments like a stock, but I don't really trust the stock market that much. So just something to think about. So that's what's happening with that. When the BRICS countries and others are unloading U.S. Treasury bonds, I would pay attention to that. So follow the money, connect the dots, get the truth. And that's how we make Gotham great again and shave your knuckles for justice. Boom.